Hi, welcome to episode 9 of the Gentle Knitter podcast. My name is Nicole and I'm coming to you from Ottawa, Ontario. Today is Sunday, October 30th. It's a gloomy Sunday afternoon and basically I've spent the entire weekend doing absolutely nothing and it's been heavenly. It's been quite busy these last couple of weeks since I last talked to you. I went to Rhinebeck, and then last weekend my in-laws were staying with us. They were here to help us do some big jobs around the house. We had renovated our entire house last winter. And for instance, this room used to have a wall dividing, like a half wall that went across, and so we got rid of that and we put in a beam. We redid the entire kitchen. We renovated our one and only bathroom. So it was quite the scene in here for many months. But we hadn't finished all of the smaller jobs, like there was still painting to be done and caulking around the baseboards and that kind of thing. So that's what we did last weekend. And it's been really hectic at work, so this weekend Mark and I decided that we would plan to make no plans. And we just basically just hung out, and it was just heavenly. It was really, really what we needed, just to be able to hang out, just the two of us, well, the three of us. Of course, Marcel was here, and that was probably the only activity I did was walk the dog and make a big pot of soup. But other than that, we watched Shetland, which is a series on Netflix, at least here in Canada. If you haven't seen it, it's a really fun, it's kind of like murder mysteries, and it's set in Shetland, and it's definitely filmed there. I recognize a lot of the places that you see in the show, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a really great series, well acted, and the intrigues are really good. It's not really gruesome or anything like that, but it is, they are murder mysteries. So thank goodness there aren't that many murders in Shetland in real life, because there wouldn't be any Shetlanders left after a few years. But anyway, yeah, but I did want to record because I have a lot to tell you about. I wanted to talk about Rhinebeck and all the woolly goodness I got there. So let's jump right in. First of all, I thought I would kind of give you a little recap of what the trip was like, and I'll show you the things that I bought and talk to you a little bit about the people I met and all of that. That's mainly what I'm going to talk about in this episode. So if for any reason you're not all that interested in hearing about, stash acquisitions, or hearing about an event that you couldn't attend, I totally understand. Sometimes it's sort of a little bit sad if you weren't able to attend a specific event to have to hear about it. So if you're not interested in any of that, no problem. Come back, tune in next time, and I will resume my more usual fare of talking about, I'll answer questions from the Ravelry group, and I will, talk about my works in progress and that kind of thing. I really don't have any works in progress except for a sample that I can't show you. And there is one thing that I'm working on right now, and I will show it to you, but it is from yarn that I bought in Rhinebeck, so that I will talk about this time. I won't cover any questions. I think just talking about Rhinebeck will be long enough. But like I said, next time we'll resume our regular program, if you will, regular segments. But today, let's just go into, I'll talk to you a little bit about my trip there and what I saw and the people I ran into, and I will show you the goodies that I bought. So the drive up was wonderful. It takes about around 6 hours to get there from here to drive, and the drive was beautiful. The weather was amazing. The colors were not as vibrant as I expected them to be, or I should say advanced. There was a lot of green still in the trees, but it was still really beautiful. And driving through upstate New York is just so gorgeous. The place we were staying at was really lovely. It was just a little room in a little cottage in the middle of the woods, not far from Rhinebeck in Red Hook, just about 10-minute drive from the actual fairgrounds. And then Friday night, I drove over to Kingston, which is just across the river from Rhinebeck, because there's on the Friday before Rhinebeck, they've been having this event called Indie Untangled, and it is a vendor's night for small indie dyers that are not part of the official festival. Something I learned, which really I found really interesting, is that it's actually incredibly difficult to get into Rhinebeck as a vendor. And apparently there are really long waiting lists for people to be able to sell at Rhinebeck. The vendors that have been there before get priority, and then only when a space, when somebody decides to no longer sell at Rhinebeck, is there a space available for somebody new. So apparently there's a lot of people waiting to get into Rhinebeck. Even some really big and very well-known yarn companies are not in Rhinebeck because they can't get a spot. But this event, the Friday night event, is held at the Best Western in Kingston. And like I said, it features indie dyers. And so I drove over and hoping to maybe run into some people and maybe buy one or two little things. Well, I ended up buying more than one or two things, and it's so hard because you want to keep your money for the festival, but at the same time, when you see all this yummy yarn and you're just primed to shop, there's a lot of temptations. So I only ran into one person that I knew, and that was Michelle Wong, and I was so happy to run into her because, in fact, I didn't end up seeing her again at Rhinebeck, so we got a chance to chat, and I do a lot of knitting for Michelle, so it's always good to catch up and just we have a lot of online conversations, but to be able to talk face to face and give each other a hug is just absolutely lovely. I bought a few things. The first thing, I ran into this really beautiful booth by Canon Yarns, and I believe this is a company from Portland, Oregon. And one of the things that there was a lot of at the festival are mini skeins. They're very popular, and I think a lot of people are knitting blankets with mini skeins, like memory blankets. And sorry, my one of my prompts came up there. It distracted me. So anyway, there are a lot of vendors selling mini skeins, but I had never seen this product, and what it is groups of mini skeins. So these are really small. Sorry for the crinkling. I will try not to really. Here we go. Really small, 25 gram. Is that right? No, sorry, 22 to 24 yard skeins. And I just thought these were so sweet, and I just love the colors. Very like kind of pastel-y. They are coming up a little bit brighter. They're a little more muted in real life, but I thought it would be so fun to make a pair of socks with all of these colors. So basically I have enough in these two packets to make a pair of socks, and I will no doubt be really annoyed at myself for deciding to do this, because just imagine all the ends. But I do think that it would make a really charming pair of socks, so I went ahead and bought that. And then I went to a booth called Skeiny Dipping, And her booth was gorgeous. She, the dyer, I don't know her name, but she had really brilliant jewel tone, like very, very saturated yarn. And what I like especially about her yarn is that it's very luminous, so it's jewel tone and not overly variegated. And there is also kind of a black cast over the colors, so it kind of brings down the brightness of the color. So inside you've got this super bright color, and then you've got this black kind of haze over it. I don't know how she does it, but I've seen yarn like this before, and I just absolutely love the effect. I wonder if I can show you. I don't know if you can see that. It is kind of this golden, bronzy, yellow, mustard color. But it has the fuzziness is dark. Maybe you can see it a little bit here. Now this is slightly out of my usual palette. It's a very bright, and it's showing up even brighter on the screen. It's a little more muted than that, but I really love this kind of color with gray, with like charcoal gray or with navy, and those are colors that I wear a lot. So I thought it might be really beautiful to make kind of a scarfy shawlette with this. And it would be a nice kind of pop of color in the winter. I have a black wool coat, and I think this would look really beautiful with that. So I really wanted to get at least one skein of something out of the ordinary for me. I think it's fun to kind of push the boundaries a little bit, and this one just fit the bill. It's incredibly soft. The blend is a 70% merino, 20% cashmere, 10% nylon. There's 400 yards, and the color is called Wacky Tobacco. And I really like that. And actually, tobacco is a good description of this color, kind of a bronzy, yellowy mustard. Then the last thing I got at the Friday night event was yarn from Woolen Vine. The dyer, her name is Christy, and she is a very popular podcaster. She has the Yarngasm podcast, which you probably know. Her booth was incredibly popular. It was really overrun by people, and I could see why her yarn is so popular. A lot of her yarn is variegated, and she does some dyeing over like stellina and kind of sparkle bases, which are not really my thing. But when I saw there was a kind of a grouping of yarns that was a lot more muted, and when I saw, and especially when I felt this yarn, I really couldn't resist. So I got 2 skeins of this Woolen Vine yarn, and it's blowing out a lot. There, that's a little bit better. The pink one, it's a very kind of dusty pale pink with a lot of cream, and I believe the color name is called Jilted Rose. It's on the Volca base, which is an 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon blend, and there's 400 meters. And then the second skein is it's on the Narwhal base, which is 70% blue face luster, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And the colorway is Poe. And I really love these two together, and I thought it would make a really beautiful striped shawl. So, or a brioche maybe. So anyway, that is the other thing that I bought at the event, and I got to meet Kristen, and it was really lovely to talk to her. So yeah, I was really happy with my initial purchases, but like I said, spent more money than I wanted to. But I guess that's what Rhinebeck is for. So then on the Saturday, got up really early and got there around 8:30. I think it opened at 9. It was a really magical morning. It was very, very misty. There was a lot of fog, but the sun was kind of coming through the fog, and the lineup, there was already a really long lineup, but I didn't have to wait too long, and it was really, really cold, but everybody was excited, and everyone in line, we were all talking to each other and kind of sharing what kind of plans we had, where we were from, that kind of thing. So it was really nice. So I spent like the first part of the day by myself, which was really nice. I knew I would run into a lot of people, and I had plans to meet friends later in the day, but I always like to take a little bit of time on my own, just to kind of walk around and do people watching. And it's very, very hectic at the beginning of the festival, and I thought it would be nice to just not try to negotiate talking to people I hadn't seen in a long time, plus all the crowds, and then trying to do a bit of shopping. I felt it would be maybe a bit too much. I tend to like to do shopping on the second day, on the Sunday, because there's a lot less people, and unless you are going there and wanting to buy something that you know is going to sell out or is in limited supply, really waiting till Sunday, there's still tons and tons of yarn. And if you're like me and you're more into the kind of muted natural yarn, usually there's lots left over on the Sunday. If you're really into buying the the special Rhinebeck edition of, let's say, Miss Babs yarn, then definitely you are going to that booth first and you're getting in line. The lineup at Miss Babs was insane. And, I think her yarn, I get it. She has really incredible color mixes. But again, it's very, very variegated, most of it. And so not really what I'm looking for. So luckily I didn't have to brave the Miss Babs booth. So on the Saturday morning, I didn't end up buying very much, although I did make one quite major purchase. And when I saw this yarn, I hadn't planned on buying this, but when I saw it, I remembered how heavenly it was, and I realized that if I wanted some, I needed to buy it on the spot, because last year it had sold out, and I suddenly just had to have some. I'm going to take my glasses off because I can tell that the reflection is really bad. Sorry. So this yarn was at a booth by a company that I'm not going to remember. It had Adirondack in their name. They had a really large booth, and I believe it's a yarn store somewhere in the Adirondacks. I will look up the name and put it down. But they had a big display of Woolfolk yarn, which is a beautiful line of extremely fine merino yarn. And if you've seen their designs and the company aesthetic, it is just made for me. It's all incredibly beautiful neutral colors, lots of gray and cream and navy and natural kind of beige, and their yarn is really some of the softest yarn I've ever touched. And they had, and also the designers that they use, they have incredibly beautiful designs. They come out with these insanely beautiful design collections. And they had samples there, and this one sample, just I fell in love with it so hard, and I just absolutely had to have it. The pattern is called, well, first of all, I'll talk about the yarn. So the yarn is Snow by Woolfolk. Here's the label. And this yarn, so like I was saying, it is it's called Ultimate Merino, and it really is the ultimate in merino. It's a marled gray and white can see it's blowing out a bit. There, you can see it better there. So it's got one white strand and one gray strand. And the pattern I'm knitting is called Drys, or Drys, D-R-Y-S. I will put up a picture here. It's a pattern by Melanie Berg, and it is a beautiful garter stole, I guess, or shawl. It's a rectangular, very long, wide rectangular wrap, if you will, which reminded me a lot of the scarf I was telling you about last episode, that, and I've talked about it before, that big blue garter scarf that I wear all of the time. This was very similar, except it had, on top of being just this really big sea of garter, it had eyelets that were kind of interspersed throughout the design. And when I was able to fondle this sample, it was so drapey and almost heavy and squishy and so soft. It was like a cloud. I really knew that if I knit that, I would wear it all of the time. And so I bought enough yarn to make this big, beautiful garter rectangle. Now, when I bought the yarn, I was talking to the lady at the booth, and she said, oh yes, so you need 11 skeins of this yarn and you hold it double. So great. Well, not great because it cost me a fortune, but I kind of bit the bullet and went ahead and bought it. And when I got home after Rhinebeck and downloaded the pattern, I noticed that the pattern actually calls for 6 skeins of this yarn and then 11 skeins of another Woolfolk yarn. I believe it's the Far. And basically, you need 6 skeins of this and 11 of the other, because the other yarn has much lower yardage, and you're basically knitting from one strand of this and one strand of the other. Well, that's not what I have. I have enough to knit 2 strands of this yarn, the Snow. And so I was really disappointed. I thought, oh, it's not going to be the same, and I really loved the version they had in the booth. And maybe I could contact the company and see if I could return some of the yarn. And anyway, I hemmed and hawed. And then I decided that I would use 1 skein and knit up a swatch and just see what it looked like. Well, I loved the results. And I figured I had enough yardage, and it was a little bit thinner than what they had. But I actually really liked it. It was even drapier than what they had in the booth. And so I decided I would keep the yarn, and I've started working on it. And this is my one work in progress that I can show you. And basically, you have this Gigantor garter rectangle. I'm knitting this on Chaogu's lace on 5mm needles, and see if I can show you this beautiful fabric. It's just a really gorgeous, super squishy garter goodness. It's so soft. You can see the halo there of the yarn. Yeah, it's such a pleasure. It's like eating the most delicious dessert when you're working on this. I would really love to be working on this all of the time, but I have to be really disciplined because I have a sample to finish. So this is kind of my waiting, mindless knit if I can't work on the sample, because the sample is, it's got color work and all that, so it's not something I can do while I'm, on the bus or whatever. So I am able to sneak a few rows of this deliciousness, but as soon as that sample's done, I'm going full full force on this because it is absolutely wonderful, and I do not regret one bit spending most of my Rhinebeck money at that booth because it's really heavenly yarn. Probably some of the nicest yarn I've ever knit with. So after that, I made my way to, there's a hill where they have the Ravelry Meetup, and that was a lot of fun. They hand out buttons where you can write your name and your Ravelry name, and so you walk around and go, oh, I know this person, and it's really lovely. After the Ravelry Meetup was the Podcasters Meetup. And that was such a lovely opportunity for me to meet other podcasters, people that I really enjoy watching, and to meet some of you. And that was so wonderful. I really, I had quite a few people come up to me and ask me, are you the Gentle Knitter? And it was really wonderful. I got to hug a bunch of people and find out where you're from, and that was just such a joy. I thank you so much for coming up to me. I got to talk to Chelsea and Sue from the Legacy Knits podcast, which is a podcast I really enjoy. I also got to meet Eric from Sticks and Twine down here. Anyway, I really like his podcast. He's from Toronto. Who else did I get to meet? I got to meet Amy Beth, who's the Fat Squirrel. Her podcast is called The Fat Squirrel Speaks, and I adore her podcast. So it was really fun to meet her. She was incredibly sweet. Who else did I meet? I met the lady, I forget her name, from the Fiber Trek podcast, which is one I just started watching. It's really lovely. I met Mary Jane Mucklestone. She doesn't have a podcast. She was just hanging out. She was actually hanging out with Nora Gone, which was like, ooh. But Mary Jane and I know each other from the Shetland tour that I took. And it was funny because I was thinking, oh, I wonder, if I'll see Mary Jane, because I knew she was doing a book signing. And so I saw her and I thought, I wonder if she'll remember me. And she remembered me. She gave me the biggest hug, and it was so, so lovely to catch up with her. And she told me she watches the podcast, so that was quite exciting. I met up with Allison, who is a friend of Michelle Wong's. She actually sometimes podcasts with her, and she's a really lovely knitter. She works at Pearl Soho, actually, and we really got chatting for quite a while. We talked about the elections and our feelings about that, which I won't get into because it's way too political, but anyway, that was a really good conversation, and we hopefully will get a chance to meet up again, maybe next time I'm in New York City. I know I'm forgetting other people. I saw Stephen West. I didn't talk to him, but he's impossible to miss because he's like 8 feet tall and covered in, neon brioche. And he seemed really awesome. He was very, very popular presence there. But I saw Kristen again from Woolen Vine, the Grocery Girls, trying to remember who else. It was a really lovely time, and it's a bit of a blur, frankly. I got to meet up with Alyssa Dougherty. You may know her. She's a designer. Her design company is called Blue Bee Studios, and she designed one of my favorite cardigan patterns of all time called the Woodfords. I haven't knit it yet, but it is really high up on in my queue. We had met last year and really just hit it off, and so it was great to see her again, and we ended up spending quite a bit of time. We went to dinner Saturday night. I got to meet her friend Barb, who was absolutely lovely, and looking forward to hanging out with those two again. But anyway, so that was really lovely. Got to catch up with her. I also got to see Bristol Ivy, which I know from her days working at Brooklyn Tweed, because she used to coordinate the sample knitter as well. She did a lot of things, and she obviously is an incredible designer, but it was fun to see Bristol. And yeah, it was just such a lovely time. It was really, the weather was beautiful. It got quite warm in the afternoon. Everybody was shedding their hand knits. Well, at least some people were. Other people were just bearing it, sweating. But yeah, that was really lovely. Got to eat some delicious cider donuts, and let's see, did I buy anything else? I think I bought this pin on the Saturday. It's a little wool felted snowy owl. When I saw it, I just absolutely fell in love with it. I don't remember who I bought it from. Um, it was one of the booths that had a lot of rug hooking, but it also had some needle felted items. And anyway, I bought it, but I lost the little tag that came along with it. Anyway, if anybody knows who made this, I would love to know, and I will definitely credit in my show notes if I get that information. Speaking of show notes, just a little aside, I still haven't written out my show notes from last episode, and I'm sorry. I'm really bad at show notes, and I have to kind of crack the whip on myself and do them as soon as I record, because otherwise I don't do them at all. They are a bit of a pain, I have to admit. They're not my favorite part of podcasting, let's just put it that way. On the Sunday is when I did most of my shopping. It was it was a cool day, really beautiful. Well, it wasn't, I guess I shouldn't say it was beautiful. It was overcast, but there was a lot less people, and it was really fun to just kind of be more relaxed. I met up with Elizabeth again, and we spent a good part of the day together, and that was really nice. So what did I buy? I bought some yarn from a place called the Fibercraft Studios, and they are an educational center somewhere in, oh, I didn't look it up. I will put it down here, but I think they're a Waldorf-based educational center, and I love their booth. Every year I go to their booth and I drool. They just, most of their yarn is natural dyed, and they have really beautiful garments on display. Everything is very kind of that really zen sort of wabi-sabi aesthetic, very, very natural, very flowing. They had some gorgeous hand-sewn dresses on display, like these beautiful linen dresses with just these kind of shrug-like sweaters on top. And the people who run the booth are always beautifully dressed too, very elegant and just, yeah, really, really lovely. They have my number, I'll tell you. And what I bought there was a bundle of yarn, and this is all naturally dyed yarn. So I think the bluish ones are probably indigo. I'm not sure. The yellow might be onion skins, and I think this is dyed with black walnut. And it is sold as a kit to knit. It says knit a scarf, shawl, or headband with plant colors. And you know, there is a somewhat of a recipe in this little booklet that explains how you can make one of those. I'm not too worried about following their instructions, but they did have a lot of garments on display that combined a lot of yarns in garter, and you kind of knit, each row is knit with a different yarn, and it creates this really beautiful kind of just soft changing piece of fabric that is just gorgeous. So I'm gonna make something. I don't know what, but this was something that I really wanted to take home. And so that's another acquisition. One of the things that I had mentioned I wanted to get was a Turkish spindle. So I was kind of on the hunt for that. I ended up buying one at Carolina Homespun, and they had quite a good selection of really sweet Turkish spindles. And the one I ended up buying was this one. It's really pretty. It is, the person who made it is A. Geary, and I think that this is ebony and this is birch, I believe. I'm not quite sure, but it spins really beautifully, as you can see. It's just got a lovely, lovely spin. And I've never spun on a Turkish before. I'm just kind of learning how to wind the yarn on the whorl. And what's really neat about a Turkish spindle is that you can take out the shaft, and then you can pull out the arms that make up the whorl, and you end up with a ball of yarn. Now there's not a lot there, but you know, once you've filled up the whorl, you end up with a nice big ball of yarn. And it's a center pull, so when you're plying, you can basically ply from one, or by taking the outside yarn and the inside yarn, or if you have to, you can just ply from those two balls. But anyway, I really enjoy spinning with this. I've played with it a little bit, and it works really beautifully. So yay, a new spindle. So now I have 3. I've got my Moosey, which I've shown you before. I've got another one that is, I think it's an oak spindle. Is very beautiful. Maybe I'll show it to you next time. And I've got this little Turkish spindle, which feels almost like it spins by itself. It's really, really got beautiful, beautiful rotation. Very, very well balanced. Anyway, so I really enjoy that. I'm just spinning some fiber I had in my stash, which I believe is indigo dyed. I can show that to you. It's a really pretty blue and gray mix, and I don't remember the fiber content. Classic. I'm losing my light here, so I've got 2 more things to show you. I bought some hand lotion, a hand lotion bar, and the company is it's the Lolo bars by the Lolo Body Bar by Barmaids, and it actually had a sticker on the top, but I kind of like, you know, I'm into this sort of minimalist thing, so I took off the sticker. But the bar itself smells so good. The fragrance is the Highlander fragrance, and it says it's kind of like meadow flowers and wood, kind of like moss and a bit of tobacco, and it smells really, really fresh but warm at the same time. I really love this, and it's really nice to use. So basically, you plop the bar in your hand, and you just kind of rub it, and then you rub your hands. And it feels really greasy at the beginning, but you just kind of work it in. It doesn't take very long to absorb into your skin, and it makes my poor overworked hands really, really soft. And I can work it into my new tattoo, which somebody was asking about. So yeah, last time in the last episode you probably saw glimpses of this. It is a work in progress. I am getting all medicinal plants. So this is wild rose, and I have the beginnings of some violet there. I'm also going to have some stinging nettle, some red clover, and some oat oat straw or oat grass. So I'm going full crazy tattoo lady sleeve, much to the chagrin of my mom, I'm sure. But anyway, it is very true what they say. Once you start, you can't stop. So the last thing I bought was some beautiful, beautiful yarn by a vendor called Fox Hill Farm. And they specialize in Cormo, which is a really soft, beautiful breed of sheep. And I had bought some fiber from them last year, some Cormo fiber, and I really loved spinning with it. So I couldn't resist buying something else from them. And what I ended up buying was 2 skeins of this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous yarn. It's a lace weight, kind of a heavy lace weight, I would say. It's more of a fingering, 100% Cormo, and although no, it says a Cormo cross. Anyway, it is insanely soft, insanely light, fluffy, and the natural color is just so beautiful. Yeah, you can see it there. I love how it's not perfectly spun. There's some kind of poofier bits, and to me it just makes that yarn even more beautiful and so squishy. And I've got, how many? Each skein is 570 yards, so it will make a very big shawl. I don't know what yet, but this had to come home with me. So, oh, it's a perfect pillow. Sweet dreams. Well, you know what? I think that's a really lovely place to end the podcast. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you. I'm sure I've forgotten lots of really wonderful things. I saw lots of animals and ate some great food. But basically, that was Rhinebeck this year. I really loved it. I had a great time. And I think it might have to become an annual event for me. But anyway, it was great, and I'm looking forward to working with all of my new yarns and showing you what I end up knitting with my new treasures. I hope you're well, and thank you for all the beautiful feedback you give me on in the Ravelry group and on the YouTube, in the YouTube comments. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, because that will give you, you'll get a notification when I upload a new episode. So I think that's it for me right now. I will talk to you in about 2 weeks. And until then, I hope you have lots of cozy knitting time. All right, bye.